Right, it's 8:52 and it's yet another big week for Brexit coming up. Theresa May is continuing to try to win support for her Brexit deal. There will be, we think, another vote in the House of Commons this week, probably Wednesday. Writing in the Sunday Telegraph today, she has urged patriotic MPs to back her.
So let's try and make sense of what this week could bring and what the last few days have certainly delivered. We're joined by Sonia Sodha, who is in Westminster. She's from The Observer and the Daily Telegraph's Sherelle Jacobs. Good morning to you both. Thank you for braving the elements down there in Westminster. Let's start, first of all, maybe Sonia, I can start with you, because look, what a week it has been, but it's going to deliver even more this week. This really is that crunch week that we've been talking about for so long. This could be the week we get some answers.
Absolutely. So, as you said, we're going to probably see Theresa May's deal put back before Parliament on the Wednesday. And there's a really big question, which is, are enough MPs going to back it for it to go through? Now, I think every time Theresa May brings a deal back for what she calls another crunch time, the chances of it going through go up. And I think she's probably more likely than not to get it through next week, but there's still a pretty big chance that it could fail. And the real question is, can she swing round, first of all, the DUP, her coalition partners, and the sort of hard Eurosceptic flank of MPs on the right of her party? Can she convince them to come round and back the deal? And the way she's trying to do that is by saying to them, you either back me now, you back this deal, or we're going to have a long extension to Article 50, which none of those MPs really want. So she's really trying to force their hands and bring them round the withdrawal agreement that she's negotiated.
Yeah, and we'll talk about some of what may have gone on in those negotiations in just a second. But Sherelle, I want to bring you in here because, look, we've heard from Theresa May writing in the Sunday Telegraph this morning, and she really is now going for an emotional plea. Gone are the facts, the statistics, the numbers. It's about being patriotic, she says.
And that's going to convince some people, I think, but there is still a core number of ERGers, I'd say about 15 and 20 ERGers, who are not going to come on board with this deal, who think that it reduces Britain to a vassal state, that it hands over our trade policy effectively to the EU. And there's a lot of Conservative Party members who also feel that way and are going to be pressurising their MPs this week not to vote for the deal, which raises interesting questions about Labour MPs, actually. I think there's a lot of focus at the moment on the Tory side. But the really interesting question for me next week is, are Labour MPs going to get behind the deal? Because that is what she needs. Even if the DUP come on board at this point, Tory MPs plus the DUP are good, but they are not sufficient to get this deal through next week.
Sonia, some critics this week describing Theresa May's strategy as failing her way to success. She just keeps bringing it back to the Commons. Third time lucky, she might get it over the line. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes. I mean, it was striking, wasn't it, last week when we looked at what happened in Parliament? It felt like an incredibly difficult week for the government. On Wednesday, you had some members of the cabinet rebel to vote against no deal. On Thursday, you had a whole different set of cabinet ministers rebel against the government. We had the extraordinary situation where you had one cabinet minister close the debate in favour of a government motion and then vote against it. So it was absolute chaos, chaotic scenes in Parliament last week. We've never really seen a government in this sort of chaos before. But then at the same time, you sort of left the week feeling that the chances of her deal going through have gone up. So yeah, I think failing her way to success is a really apt description for the strategy that Theresa May is playing. And I think there were two routes to her possibly getting this deal through. One was to sort of try and build a coalition, a cross-party coalition in favour of her deal and make lots of concessions to Labour MPs who might back it. But she knows that if she did that, it would split the Conservative Party. And that's why I think we've seen her go for a strategy which is much more, vote for my deal or there's going to be a really long extension. That is a strategy that's very much about winning round, very Eurosceptic Tory MPs in the DUP.
And Sherelle, just explain where we are then in terms of a short possible delay. And then also those negotiations that we've touched on with the DUP particularly. I mean, they were very keen yesterday to point out this is not about money. We're not asking for more funding. This isn't about sweetening the deal. This is about some fundamental issues that refer to that backstop, that insurance policy, about the hard border.
Well, the reality is that the DUP are not going to get any further assurances on the backstop or Northern Ireland not being divided from the United Kingdom. What they have also requested is to have a meaningful voice at the table when it comes to negotiating a future trade deal with the EU. That's something that they are likely to be able to get from Theresa May. They are very vulnerable to this argument that they are being handed a bung, that they are being bought off. So it's going to be interesting to see how they sort of weather that narrative. So yes, it's very interesting. But I do want to also emphasise what will be key next week is the Labour side of things. That it's really interesting to look at the Labour MPs in Leave voting seats. They are actually going to be the kingmakers next week once you have a certain number of Tory MPs and the DUP on board. They are stuck between a rock and the hard place because they have Leaver constituents on one hand who do not like this deal, think it's not good enough, and on the other hand they have party members at the grassroots who are Remainers who also don't like the deal. So they are stuck in the middle here, and they'd be very vulnerable if they are seen to be the ones that put this deal over the line.
But the thing is, it's very, very difficult for them because they could vote for this withdrawal deal. The problem is, though, is that nothing about the future relationship with the EU is set in stone. That's going to come down to whoever's Prime Minister in 6 months to negotiate with the EU. It's unlikely to be Theresa May. So the sort of reassurances that Theresa May might give to Labour MPs in Leave voting areas to try and bring them round behind her deal probably won't be worth the paper they're written on.
It's good to talk to you both. Sonia, Sherelle, make the most of the relative peace and quiet today. You've got a busy week ahead. Nice to see you both. Thanks so much.
And you're watching Breakfast from BBC News.